The first time Max growled at the chicken coop, Sarah almost laughed, until she saw the look in his eyes. It wasn't just any growl. It was deep, cautious, alert, like he had found something the world had forgotten. Sarah Carter, now 27, hadn't set foot on her grandparents' old farm since she was a teenager. The house, now abandoned, had aged poorly. The roof sagged, vines strangled the fence, and silence pressed thick on everything. Her grandfather passed away 8 years ago. Her grandmother, taken by dementia soon after, left the land untouched. But Sarah had returned for closure, not just for them, but for herself. Because this was the place her brother, Ethan, had vanished 10 years ago. He was just 12. One moment, he was chasing a rabbit past the barn. The next, he was gone. No trace, no body, just a torn shoelace and a town full of whispers. Some thought he ran away. Others blamed the old well, now filled with concrete. Sarah never believed any of it. She believed Ethan was taken. Or worse, that someone in their quiet town of Maple Hollow knew more than they ever admitted. Now here she was, years later, with her rescue dog Max, a stubborn, intelligent German shepherd with a nose for trouble. She hadn't planned to bring him on this trip, but the way he'd stared at her when she grabbed her keys made it impossible to say no. Max was sniffing around the collapsed chicken coop when it started, the growl, the digging. Sarah called to him, but he was focused. He scratched feverishly at the dirt, kicking up clouds until something hard knocked against his paw. A buried wooden box, soaked through with time. Sarah's heart pounded. Inside, a small rusted flashlight, Ethan's favorite baseball cap, and a folded piece of paper wrapped in plastic. She unfolded it with trembling hands. "If you find this, I'm not dead. I heard them talking. They're going to take me somewhere. Please don't forget me. Signed, Ethan." Sarah fell to her knees. The wind stopped. The birds stopped. The world stopped. He was alive, or had been, and someone had hidden it. Sarah called the police, but after a decade, they were skeptical. Maybe he left it as a prank, the officer had said. Kids run away all the time. But this wasn't a prank. Sarah knew her brother. He wasn't the type to disappear without a trace or to leave her behind. She took the box to her only remaining connection in town who might listen, Noah Green, Ethan's best friend and now a rookie sheriff's deputy. Noah hadn't been the same since Ethan vanished. He'd taken the loss hard, dropped out of college early, and returned to Maple Hollow hoping to make something right, though he never said what. When Sarah showed him the note, his hands shook. "I knew he wouldn't just run," he whispered. "I always knew." Together, they started asking questions. Old questions, this time with new urgency. They visited the now retired mailman, who remembered seeing Ethan argue with a stranger the week before he vanished. They went to the local diner, where a waitress remembered a man with a scar above his eye asking for directions to the Carter farm around that same time. But it wasn't until they visited Mr. Jennings, the former handyman for Sarah's grandparents, that something cracked. Mr. Jennings, now nearly blind and sickly, sat on his porch rocking in silence. When Sarah mentioned the chicken coop, his eyes flicked up sharply. "You found the box, didn't you?" he rasped. Noah stepped forward. "What do you know?" "I told him not to," Jennings muttered. "Told him it wasn't right. But they said the boy heard too much." Sarah froze. "Heard what?" "Your grandpa wasn't just farming," Jennings said. "Back then, a few men in town were running something illegal. Quiet like. Ethan saw one of their meetings. They thought he'd talk." Noah stepped back, shaken. "And they took him." Jennings nodded slowly. "I didn't help them, but I kept quiet. I was scared." Sarah was crying now. "Where is he?" "Is he?" "I don't know," Jennings admitted. "But I heard talk of a hunting cabin up in Red Hollow. One of them used it for storage. Could be worth checking." The next morning, Sarah and Noah set out with Max, who seemed to sense the urgency. The drive to Red Hollow was steep and winding. Fog clung to the mountain roads like a ghost refusing to leave. When they found the cabin, overgrown and silent, it felt like stepping into another time. Max was on alert again. He sniffed the perimeter, then suddenly bolted toward the cellar door half buried in vines. Sarah and Noah forced it open, the rusted lock snapping with effort. Inside, dust, crates, old tools. And, at the far wall, a mattress. Chains, empty food tins, signs someone had lived there, or been kept there. Sarah found a tattered children's book on the mattress. Inside, Scribbled on the last page, "Still here. Don't stop." Tears flooded her eyes. Ethan had been here, maybe for years. Suddenly, Max barked, loud, urgent. In the corner, behind a false wall, was a trapdoor. It groaned as Noah pulled it open. And then they saw him. A man, thin, beard down his chest, eyes sunken, but familiar. So familiar. "Ethan," Sarah whispered. He blinked into the light. "Sarah." Then he collapsed. Ethan survived. It took weeks in the hospital, months of therapy, but he survived. He had been kept for 3 years in that cabin, then moved to another location when the men got scared. He'd escaped eventually, but with no ID, no voice, and a broken spirit, he never made it home. It was only after a decade of surviving on the streets, trying to remember who he was, that he found his way back. He had returned to the Coop weeks before, buried the box in hope, and left, afraid the men might still be watching. But Max had found it. The truth came out. Arrests were made. A deep-rooted conspiracy in Maple Hollow was finally uncovered. Mr. Jennings gave a full statement before passing away peacefully. Sarah inherited the farm and turned it into a shelter for lost kids and animals, inspired by the brother she almost lost forever. In Max got a medal from the mayor, a lifetime supply of treats, and a bed by the fire. The story of Ethan Carter's rescue wasn't just about loss or survival. It was about hope that never dies, about the bond between siblings, about how even after the world forgets you, one loyal heart, one buried clue, one brave bark, can change everything. Because sometimes, heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes, they have fur.